Dr. Lydia Chen stared at the ancient data crystal, its surface shimmering with an otherworldly light that seemed to pulse with forgotten memories. The artifact had been discovered in the deepest vaults of the Terran archive, buried beneath centuries of bureaucratic records and stellar survey reports. What made it truly remarkable wasn't its age. Though at over 800 years old, it predated humanity's first contact with the Galactic Council, but rather what it contained. "Are you certain this is authentic?" Admiral Torres asked, his weathered face creased with skepticism. The holographic projection flickered between them, displaying fragments of corrupted data that seemed to writhe and shift when observed directly. "The quantum encryption matches pre-council standards perfectly," Chen replied, her fingers dancing across the interface. "But there's something else. The data shows signs of systematic deletion attempts. Someone, or something, tried very hard to erase this from existence." The crystal contained fragments of what appeared to be first contact protocols, but not with any species currently known to the Galactic Council. The files spoke of creatures called the Shade Stalkers, beings that existed partially outside normal space-time, capable of inducing mass psychological terror across entire star systems. According to the incomplete records, they had been humanity's first extraterrestrial encounter, occurring nearly a millennium ago during Earth's early expansion period. "Listen to this," Chen said, isolating an audio fragment. The voice that emerged was distinctly human, but strained with barely contained panic. "Day 47 of the siege. They're not attacking our ships or our colonies. They're attacking our minds. Captain Morrison hasn't spoken in 3 days. The crew reports nightmares of creatures that shouldn't exist, moving through walls, whispering in languages that predate thought itself. We've lost contact with 7 colonies, not destroyed. The settlements are intact but empty. Every soul simply gone." Torres frowned. "Why haven't we heard of this before? Our historical records begin with the Zalari first contact, nearly 600 years ago." "That's what's fascinating," Chen continued, pulling up comparative data. "I've cross-referenced this with every major database in human space. Nothing. No mention of shade stalkers, no record of early colony disappearances, no documentation of psychological warfare on this scale. It's as if this entire chapter of human history was surgically removed from our collective memory. The deeper they delved into the crystal's contents, the more disturbing the picture became. The Shade Stalkers weren't merely another hostile alien species. They were something far more insidious. They fed on fear and despair, growing stronger as their victims' terror intensified. Entire worlds had been evacuated not because of physical destruction, but because the inhabitants could no longer function, driven to madness by entities that existed just beyond the edge of perception. "But here's where it gets interesting," Chen said, her excitement growing despite the grim subject matter. "Look at these tactical reports from the end of the conflict." The final entries painted a very different picture. Humanity, faced with an enemy that could turn their own minds against them, had done something unprecedented. Instead of fleeing or surrendering, they had adapted. The record spoke of soldiers who learned to embrace their fear, using it as a weapon rather than a weakness. They described tactics that seemed impossible. Humans who could somehow resist the Shade Stalkers' psychological attacks through sheer bloody-minded stubbornness. "The final entry is remarkable," Chen whispered, reading from the partially corrupted text. Quote, "Day 112. We've figured out their weakness. They expect us to break, to surrender to the darkness they bring. But humans, we're different. We've been living with our own darkness for millennia. War, plague, death. We've survived it all not by avoiding fear, but by walking through it. Today, Lieutenant Rodriguez actually laughed while being attacked by one of their shadow forms. The creature recoiled as if struck. We're beginning to understand. They're not used to prey that bites back. Torres leaned back in his chair. You're suggesting that humanity defeated these Shadestalkers? More than that, Chen replied. According to these records, we didn't just defeat them. We terrified them so thoroughly that they retreated from this entire galactic sector and apparently erased all evidence of their existence here. Look at this final transmission. The last fragment was brief but chilling. This is Admiral Sarah Kim aboard the flagship Defiance. The enemy has withdrawn beyond our sensor range. We've received what can only be described as a surrender communication, though the method of delivery was unique. They've offered to remove all traces of their presence from human space and human memory in exchange for our agreement never to pursue them beyond our current borders. The Council of Admirals has voted unanimously to accept. Perhaps it's better that future generations never know what we faced here. Some nightmares are better left forgotten. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity's first contact with hostile aliens hadn't ended in desperate survival or Pyrrhic victory. It had ended with the aliens so thoroughly frightened of human tenacity that they had essentially requested to be allowed to run away and hide. But why reveal this now? Torres asked finally. Chen manipulated the interface one final time, revealing a timestamp on the crystal's creation. This crystal was programmed to activate only under specific conditions. When humanity had achieved a certain level of galactic influence and technological development. I think it's a message from our ancestors, a reminder of what we're truly capable of when pushed to our limits. As they sat in the glow of the ancient data crystal, both researchers understood they were looking at more than just forgotten history. They were seeing proof that humanity's reputation in the galaxy, their stubborn refusal to yield, their ability to find hope in the darkest circumstances, their tendency to turn survival into an art form, wasn't just propaganda or wishful thinking. It was a legacy written in the nightmares of creatures so terrifying that they chose to erase themselves from history rather than face humanity again. The Shadestalkers had vanished from memory forever, but their fear of humanity remained, encoded in the very fabric of galactic politics. Every species that looked upon humans with a mixture of respect and wariness was unconsciously honoring a terror so profound that even its memory had been sacrificed to contain it. Chen sealed the crystal back in its containment field, knowing that some secrets were meant to remain buried. But she also knew that somewhere in the darkness between stars, ancient nightmares still remembered the species that had taught them the meaning of fear, and that memory would keep humanity safe, even if humanity itself had forgotten why.